What was really unique about this project was getting people from across the system together to really focus on mental health. And we really did touch on how this impacted them and the employees in the workplace. We did have a speaker come in and really talk about anxiety, stress, things that really impact our employees in their day-to-day work. And that's where it really kind of started tying into this safety. Because we know if employees are not really 100% focused on their job, and they've got this other things going through their head or their worries and concerns, that there could be some issues around that.
Good morning and welcome to the last day of Power On Deliver Strong Innovation Week. I'm Christy Boyette from the Center for Excellence in Innovation. I'll be your host for this session. Today we are featuring the 2023 Spirit of Innovation Safety Excellence Award recipients. These Innovation Week sessions have been classified as training and are intended for Encore employees only. As a reminder, during the session today, if you have a question, you can just type it into the chat and we'll make sure to get that asked and answered. And now I'm happy to introduce this session about how the Mental Health Awareness Series started last year is fostering an open and supportive environment for all employees. All the presenters in this session are paving the way for a workplace culture that values mental health as much as physical health. First, we will hear from Scott Trapp, our Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Take it away, Scott.
Thank you, and good morning, Encore. Thank you for joining us for our Mental Health Awareness session. I want to personally thank all of you who attended and supported our 2023 mental health programming efforts. Your engagement contributed to these programs reaching over 550 employees, which was record-breaking and astounding for our first efforts. This became one of our several innovations that was implemented last year, and we were honored to receive the Spirit of Innovation Award. We look forward to providing more programming in the years to come. This effort was highly collaborative and included partnerships with several Encore teams and programs. Special thanks to my co-executive sponsor, Becky Hall, who is the Director of Benefits, the DEI team, and volunteers from our Valor and Encore Families employee resource groups and Live Well champions. Your genuine passion, heartfelt concerns, and willingness to do what it took to execute these programs made this effort a great success for our Encore community. It is important for us to take care of ourselves and one another, and the years of the pandemic may have proven this more than any other year before it. And it is the realization and spirit that motivated our senior benefits analyst, Billy Mayo, to develop offerings that could better promote employees' mental health. Please join me in welcoming Lily to take the stage to share more about her inspiration and a few highlights from the 2023 programs. Lily?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Scott. For many of us, the early days of COVID highlighted the struggles and strains on our mental health. Between dealing with isolation and stress of the unknown, we saw loneliness, fear, anxiety, substance use, insomnia, and depression on the rise all around us. At our home, like many at Encore, we started to notice the negative impacts on our children or our loved ones, and we knew we had to prioritize our mental health. For me personally, I started to notice that my son was struggling with his learning, and I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. Why wasn't he learning? Why couldn't he remember something that I taught him 2 minutes ago? Was there something really wrong with him? Or was it me that I just never taught him before? I couldn't figure it out. We also started to notice that my daughter started becoming isolated, didn't want to go outside. Her anxiety was increasing. My husband works on the field and he still had to go outside every day and meet with people. Like many of us, sometimes I felt lonely, helpless, we struggled, we cried. It was a hard time in our household. The pandemic was a turning point. It changed the conversation around mental health at home and here at work. Employees wanted to connect with each other differently, talk about their challenges, but also share their strategies and improve their resilience. For me, it was a turning point where we had to have the real conversations of what was going on at home and also at work. I partnered with a good friend of mine and coworker, Stacy Cossey. We started to create a yearly calendar that focused on mental health. We started with a Go Red Day webinar in February, which focused the relationship between mental health and heart health. From there, we hosted a mental health month in May. During this time, we partnered with Encore EAP program Magellan. Our speaker was Ra Cohen, who discussed topics as differentiate mental health and mental illness, which means that while mental health is always there and may be positive or negative, mental illness affects a person's ability to function over a long period of time. Recognize warning signs of mental illness, which could look like feeling sad or down, focused thinking, or reduced ability to concentrate, amongst others. Recognize traumatic stress signs such as flashbacks, distress thoughts, physical signs of stress, and others. And getting help. It's okay to talk about how you are feeling. If you don't have somebody, then please call our Magellan services. We also had Live Well personal challenges that focus on mental health. Then we had our Stress Less webinar during the holidays event in November. After every event, employees have said, yes, thank you, more of this. We are thrilled at how much we have accomplished last year. And most importantly, that we are continuing to normalize the conversation around mental health. We are inspired by our employees who have been so open and grateful and encouraging. We still have a lot of work to do, but we are heading down the right direction and we are excited to keep the momentum going. Thank you so much for your support. Now I'm going to be transferring to Kimberly Traylor.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Kimberly Traylor, and I'm the DEI Program Manager here at Encore. It is as much of my pleasure to have been a member of the Planning Committee as it is for me to be before you this morning. Today, we'll be having a conversation with a couple of members who were either featured in one of our programs from last year or impacted by it. To my immediate right is someone whose face you've been seeing all week because she's actually one of the hosts for several Innovation Week sessions that's been running throughout the week. This is LaShonda Patrick. She's our CEI specialist. And for me, she's also a very close personal friend who has shared her own glimpse of her mental health journey during our first webinar that was attended by over 550 employees. Next to her is Jesse Spivey. He is our Senior Manager of IT Security Risk and Cybersecurity. He is also the co-chair of Valor, and Valor, as you heard Scott mention, is one of the ERGs that we collaborated with in developing these programs. He'll give us some insights on how he was impacted by the content from last year and help us expand the conversation regarding mental health just a little bit further. I want to thank you all for joining us today, and I really hope you enjoy this discussion. LaShonda, I want to open this conversation with you. Just over 2 years ago, you had a great personal loss with the passing of your mom. And it's been a journey that you have taken your personal friends through with you and those who follow you on your social media platforms as you share real-time insights, right? Day-to-day joys and sometimes lows of what that experience has meant to you. When the mental health team was thinking about people who may be willing to share their testimonies and personal stories to help our programming to be a little bit more impactful, it was without a doubt, your name was the first one to come to mind for me. Because of your transparency and my perception of your comfort with sharing your experiences openly, it was an easy ask. However, one of the things I didn't consider at the time is that although you were very public with sharing your journey with your personal audience you developed and curated through your platforms, I was now asking you to share those vulnerabilities with our colleagues here at Encore, with whom, frankly, we don't really do that with, right? We don't get that personal. So before we get further into our conversation today, let me just ask you briefly, did you understand the ask, or did you understand I was really asking you to go into this journey with us here with Encore? Or since it was something that you were already so comfortable with, it was something you were already doing, it just felt like an extension of that audience?
I understood the ask, but I was pondering on it for a very long time. What I did not share is the night before I was still trying to figure out what am I going to say. Because I've told the story, but how I'm going to tell the story. And I was laying in bed. I got my phone. I turned on the voice recorder. And as I was scrolling through, I noticed there was a recording back from January. And I'm like, what is this? When I hit play, it was a conversation of my mother, the doctors, and them explaining what was about to happen and that she only had 3 to 4 days to live. And that was the first time I had heard my mother's voice like that since then. And I listened to it twice. Then I got up and I got my laptop and I started to type. That's how it came about. And I was like, what I felt in that moment, I said, I've got to share, because I feel like when it comes to death and grief, we don't talk about it enough. It's so taboo. But I'm like, I know I can't be the only one struggling with this or feeling like this. So I understood the ask, but I really didn't know what I was going to say until that moment.
Got it. Okay. The vulnerability that you demonstrated in that, on that program. And for those of you who haven't seen it, we do have a copy of the link, and it's still available, and we'll be more than willing to share that with any of you who are interested. But I think the vulnerability that you showed that particular day, and the combination of your experience as well as Jason Stridiron, who also is a member of Valor and who spoke that day, it created such a powerful opening. And just immediately it cracked the armor of the guards we all walk into the professional environment with. Like, no matter how much we say Encore is a family and we have great relationships here, we know we all still walk into this space with a certain guard or representative that's on them display. Y'all's testimonies just knocked it completely down. And I think it really set the tone for us to be able to receive the content that Rod Kalan was able to share, and ultimately help resonate different emotions and expressions from other employees. You talked about your process a little bit about the night before, but even that morning of, were you prepared to be that transparent or that raw with your emotions? Or are you like me? Sometimes I think I'm like, okay, this is where I'm gonna be. And then sometimes my emotions just betray me. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
every time.
I didn't really know what was going to happen. I just said, I'm going to get up and I'm going to talk, and however it comes out, it's going to come out.
Got it.
Because I knew there were probably going to be some emotions that would arise that I could not control. But I'm like, it's going to be okay, however it comes out, because the story has to be told, because people need to know that it's okay to seek out help.
So I want to talk about help a little bit, because again, so I've acknowledged that LaShonda has walked her friends and her social media family. She called them Instagram fam, Facebook fam. That's how she opens. She's walked us through this journey personally, and being someone who she's entrusted in her inner circle, I remember conversations where people would say early on, we're talking weeks out, 3 weeks out, 6 weeks out of losing your mom, you need to get counseling. You need to go to counseling. And you're quite receptive to it now in a way that I know in them first 6 months, I can't say fully resistance, but it was definitely a turnoff when you would hear it. It almost felt like people were dismissing maybe how you were trying to connect or express by just saying, girl, you just need to go to counseling, right? In Lily's bullet point, she talked about how it's important to recognize the signs of getting help. Talk to us a little bit about that. How did you pivot from moderate resistance to, okay, now I think it's time. Now I think it's time for me to seek counseling. Talk to us about that.
You're absolutely right. I felt like people telling me to go to counseling, it was too quick. I was already trying to process what happened because it was unexpected. And I felt like people were not giving me time to process, because them saying in that moment, go to therapy, felt like, oh, therapy was going to fix what I'm feeling. And that wasn't it, because no matter how much I talked about it, no one could feel what I was feeling. So you're absolutely right. Even months afterwards, people were like, you need to go to counseling, you need to go to counseling. And I'm like, can I just say I'm sad today? Can I say I cried today? Can I say I don't feel good today without someone trying to fix it by telling me to go to counseling? It wasn't until last year I went to London for 10 days.
Okay.
I was in London. I was walking the streets, hopping taxis, buses. Like I lived
You were
there.
outside.
I was outside, all in London, staying at 5-star hotels. It was like a really, really good trip.
Okay.
And on my way back, it was 5 hours until landing to Dallas. And I started to cry because I'm like, I can't call my mom.
Mhm.
When I got out and I was waiting on my Uber, I was still crying. I had my shades and I was like, this is crazy. So when I got back, I know a lot of people were calling wanting to know about the trip. And I did say I had jet lag, but I didn't want to talk to anybody because I started feeling really heavy sadness. And I'm like, why am I feeling like this? And I just came off this amazing trip. I'm in London and I feel sad. And it wasn't, I think that lasted for like a week. Because it was, to be very honest, it was a few days I just stayed in bed and I didn't want to talk to anyone. And I said, I'm tired of feeling like this and I need help. And it wasn't until I was talking to someone and we were having a conversation and they said to me, you look sad. And I said, oh, you can see behind the mask. And when I got off that conversation with them, I picked up the phone and I got connected with a counselor, a psychotherapist.
Got it. Thank you. And just in the timeline, from what I remember, we're talking now maybe about 14 months your mom had from the loss of your mom. We're 14 months into you starting to pursue therapy. And that 14 months was like literally, you might have had 2 sessions, maybe 3, by the time we did the mental health program. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I remember from that video is you, even though you were so early in your journey, you had a strong insistence, like, it's okay to get therapy. Can you shed some insight on how was that such, like, either what had you experienced, even just in those short sessions, that realized for you, oh, this was something that I needed, and perhaps it was something I needed even before the loss, or what impression had therapy made on you at that time to where you knew you had to be a disciple of it?
Because I had someone listening to me without trying to fix me. That was number one. And then to have someone break down and help you understand what these feelings that you're feeling. And to be honest, you're absolutely right. The therapist told me, he said, you were already on edge before your mom passed. And it just took you there. And I'm like, wait, I function every day. I do this, I do that. He was like, yeah, but let me break it down and explain it to you. So you're right. I had only had a few sessions, but it was so powerful and insightful. I'm like, man, I did need this. I needed this more than I thought I needed it, but I needed it at the right time. Because if I had went to therapy soon as my mother passed, I probably wouldn't have been all in, because I wouldn't have opened up like that. I mean, you're opening up to a stranger.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Talking about opening up to strangers, again, when you express yourself in that event, Stacy and I, everyone can't see, Stacy Causey is always present for a lot of these things, and it's like another woman behind the scenes. But Stacy and I were receiving real-time messages. We were getting messages in the chat. We were getting text messages. We were getting emails, even before the program had ended, talking about how not just your story, but how the overall event was impacting them. One thing I wanted to share is a reflection that an employee sent to me. And then I want to ask, what reception have you been receiving from your colleagues? The one I received directly in email, and I'm greatly summarizing this because the employee, obviously they still work here, 1, and 2 is a very personal testimony. But a summary of what they had shared is that the day that we held the mental health event, it was that anniversary of them losing their young adult child who was in their early 20s. In the email, she shared the cause of the loss, age of the child, personality about the child. And one thing that really stood out to me was just the expression of how the impact of that loss will be with her forever. And she was just so appreciative that Encore had broken that in TV, we would call it the fourth wall, but we have broken this fourth wall, if you will, of personal connection and communication and mental health. It was at that moment when I realized that the effort spearheaded by Stacy and Lily and the work of the team was truly worthwhile. Can you talk to me about the reception you received from your colleagues directly, and in processing what you received from your community here at Encore, did it help you connect with what you had done that particular day as being worthwhile?
Yes, it did help me to connect. I did receive a lot of messages, a lot of hugs, but I had people come to me months after saying, I've started therapy. I made the call. Listening to you let me know that it's okay. It's not a bad thing. Because therapy can have a really, when you just say therapy, people can take it really negative. Because I've had people say some really negative things to me since I've said that I'm going to therapy. And I would like to say, just to anyone that is going to therapy, be sure you are mindful who you share those conversations with. Because I was sharing it with certain people that I loved, and the feedback I was getting, it was very triggering. And my therapist was like, this is not for you to go out and tell people what we talk about. So I would just like to say, be mindful of who you share that with, because when you're going through this process, you don't need that type of negative feedback.
That's a perfect end to that segment. You already know, personally, I'm proud of you. I express repeatedly how I feel like your transparency and your willingness to be vulnerable is a personal superpower, because whether we have those capabilities or not, everyone doesn't have the comfort, and you having that comfort, it makes you a pioneer in many ways and breaking down, again, that fourth wall in corporate America. So just publicly, I want to say thank you. Publicly, I want to say I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I think your story, along with Jason's, truly helped contributed to the success of the programming. I also think it contributed to us winning the award. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, LaShonda got me crying, Jesse. Woo! We gotta change the mood. Gotta change the mood. So LaShonda spoke at the first webinar that was held in May. But in November, we had a second program that was focused on how to thrive during the holiday season, because we know those gatherings, those dinners, the sleepovers, everything that comes with Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. It's a lot of family time. And as LaShonda just expressed, like, you could love these people, but they're not always coming to you with the best energy, right? And so that's what the focus was of the latter programming in the year. Jesse, I want to start with you and ask, when I look at your schedule, you're like, we're on a lot of committees and a lot of projects together. Don't worry about these tears. My emotions betray me. We're on a lot of committees and stuff together, and I know you're busy. Again, your cybersecurity, we've heard cybersecurity, communications and presentations this week. We know it's a lot going on in that space. Why is it important for you to represent Valor and make the time to attend and participate in the planning of these events?
Well, first of all, thanks for putting me in behind LaShonda.
I had tissue on this. I was ready.
Yeah, like what Jason shared when he was going back to the last event. I know we're talking about that, but that's essentially my story. I have physical issues that I deal with, which can translate into mental issues. I have struggled with PTSD as well. And for me, it's not just about me. It's also for Valor and for the veterans that are, represented here at Encore, to one, be a leader and say, hey, sometimes, you need to go and get help. And I know of two veterans that, one of which I served with, that have had to go get help sometime. So if I can be a participant and encourage people, to go and get the help they need, and be an example and lead by example, I want to do that. The other part of that too is, speaking somewhat to what LaShonda was saying, is raising awareness. You have people around you, for managers or for employees that work with veterans. They may have times when they are not real good, fun, happy people to be around. So making people aware that sometimes folks that have been through a hard time are going to have days where they're not necessarily, socially on their A game. So giving that person some grace and raising that awareness. The other reason why I feel like it's important for Valor, especially, is not just for veterans and not just for the managers, but also for the family members that work for Encore that may not be veterans, but they have a veteran in their family. I know, one in particular that I started my career with Encore, her brother had a really difficult time in the Army, and he came back, and he was facing a lot of the challenges that I face, which is you go from this high performing team where everything's happening a million miles an hour, and then all of a sudden it's just quiet. And what do you do with all that energy? What do you do with all those experiences? So just in that case, it was just being able to talk to her and let her talk about the things that she was concerned, and not necessarily try to fix it, but just say, hey, as a loved one of that person, and as a veteran, I can tell you, you should be watching out for these things. Make sure you're checking in on them, and and just kind of give some personal experiences to that. So that's, to me, where I feel like my role in Valor can help, especially from a mental health perspective.
So let's expand it a little further, because for Encore, this programming, these conversations are pretty new. We know that in corporations across the U.S., they're still pretty taboo. Like, this is another space where we may be a little bit more innovative. Irrespective of that statement, it seems as though that there's more acceptance around the realization and the engagement with mental health when the benefactors are women. And there's this very narrow acceptance for men if you were a veteran, right? But at least that's my observation. I still haven't seen an overwhelming expansion into men's presence in the mental health space outside of being a veteran. Could you shed some perspective on why do you think that is?
I think a lot of it has to do with just the way the expectation is there that you gotta be there, you gotta have everything together, and you gotta keep it together, and you've got to always be on point. You've always got to be a provider. You've always got to be a leader. You've always got to be a father for your children. You've got to be a good husband, and you got to be a good example in your community. And when you stand up and say, "I'm not being a good father right now," it takes a lot to have to sit and have that open space where you can do that and feel comfortable doing that. And I'm blessed. I'm in a men's group. We meet on Tuesday morning at a coffee shop early, and it's people from all walks of life. I mean, there's some people that are real estate executives. There's people that are lawn work. I mean, and it took me a while. I got invited into this group, but you'll have people that are very transparent. And one of the biggest, statements they make on the front end is like, "Hey, it's not quite like AA, but it's like, hey, we're not here to judge. We're here to, support, and for you to be able to be transparent, because that is very important." And it takes a while to find a group where that can actually happen. And once it does, though, I mean, you do see men cry, and you see people open up and talk about things that they're struggling with. And there's people that are like, "Hey, I don't know how to help you. I have no idea what that feels like because I've never been there, but I'm here for you. And if there's anything I can do for you, let me know." And a lot of times that support is, and that type of environment is just not very out there. It took me years to find a group like that. So I think that has a lot to do with why you don't see a lot of emphasis and a lot of transparency for men in particular.
Okay. So that takes me to the last direct question I want to ask to you, which is, which of the following do you believe will be a little bit more effective or helpful in engaging more men into the mental health programs and space? Do you think it's A, is it more that the men themselves have to overcome ego and outward perception to engage? Do you think it's B, it's nothing? Because men are already doing it. They're doing it in forms of men's groups. They're doing it in forms of hunting, golfing, fishing. could men really be participating in more mental health things that we're just unaware of or don't call it that? Or is it neither A or B and it's something else? And if so, please explain.
Oh, wow. Okay. I think it's kind of a combination.
Okay.
I think the first one is a lot. It is a lot of that. I mean, there is ego that's involved in it, and it takes a lot, not just for men, but for anyone to be transparent and say, "Hey, I'm struggling in these areas," because you have to admit that you don't have it all together. I think men letting go of that or being humble and saying, "Hey, I've made these mistakes or I have these problems," is a big factor. The other thing is having that environment where people can be open with it and they don't either have someone try and fix them right away or, look at them and be like, you're a terrible person, or, basically be judgmental about, their circumstances. The other part of that too is I do think once you kind of have that, and sometimes if you need therapy, go get it. There's a support part of it, which, all those activities you mentioned can be part of it. I think if it's effective or not is gauged in your home life and in your other relationships. If you spend all your time golfing, hunting, and fishing, or running with your buddies, and your family life isn't all that great, or your work life isn't great, that's not effective therapy. That's probably maybe a contributing factor at that point. So
that was a full word.
Yes.
You're leaving me processing in real time. I definitely want to follow up on that, but it's probably more private. I know that we have to start wrapping up our discussion. It's always a fun time when I'm with these two. I gave LaShonda a lot of kudos of being transparent and vulnerable, but actually I have to do the same for Jesse. Jesse is always up for the task. He's one of my favorite people in the company because I like when people tell me yes. And Jesse, he's always up for the challenge. He puts a lot of trust in me, and that whatever I'm asking him for is something that he's more than willing to step up to the plate to do. He never shows any sign of being uncomfortable. It's always 100% willing. And if he's not there, it's just simply he didn't have the time. So I want to acknowledge you for that and thank you as well. As we wrap up this discussion, I want to give each of you a final 30 seconds. 30 last seconds to leave your final impression on why should our viewers today prioritize their mental health. So Jesse, I'm going to come right back to you, and LaShonda, I'll end with you.
I think prioritizing your mental health is important, not just for you. It is important for you, but the way that you act, the way that you interact with your children and with other people, that's going to have consequences and benefits going out years from now. So if me as a father, if I'm not where I need to be, if I'm angry with my children, if I'm quiet all the time, if I don't do the things that I need to do as a father, there's potential for them to have relationship issues in the future and that to spread out to their children. Whereas if I take care of myself and make sure that I'm doing the things that I need to, there's always a possibility that that's going to positively benefit other people, not just them, but, society as a whole. And that's why I think it's important that we take responsible for our own mental health and we do the things that we need to do to make sure we're being our best, not just for ourselves, but for the people around us.
Perfect. Thanks, Jesse. LaShonda?
I agree with Jesse 100%. Not is it only going to help you, but it is going to help the people around you, the people you work with, because you will be surprised. Things that you discover in therapy will creep up and spill over into your work life and your friends. And it makes a big difference. And when people start saying you're different, I can tell. I can see the growth. I can see the change. It's really important. And I want to also let everyone know, I know with EAP, they're like, we have 8 free sessions, right? But you can go past those sessions. We have some really good benefits. I go to therapy every week. I'm still in therapy. And it can be paid through your benefits. So don't think you just have to do those 8 sessions and you can't keep going. You can keep going and file that through the insurance.
That's a really good point there. And I would like Becky to clarify this when I turn it over to her. It's not only 8 free sessions, but it's 8 free sessions per issue. It's 8 free sessions per issue. So you can have open issues and also maximize that benefit. But Becky, again, I will let you expound on that when I transition. I want to thank both of you for having this discussion with me today. It's always a pleasure. It's always a joy for me. This is obviously something I could do all day if I had the opportunity, but we're in a finite amount of time this morning. I want to thank all of you who took the time out of your schedules this morning to join us and listen to this conversation. I hope you heard some additional tips that could help you be better in your spaces, in your productivity at work, and with the relationships you have. With that, I will now turn it over to Becky Hall, who is our Director of Benefits. She will expound a little bit more about the impact of this mental health program and remind you all of how to access your mental health benefits. But Becky, please start with, am I correct? 8 sessions per issue, is that correct?
Yes, it's on a rolling 12-month average. You got it right. And also, just to remind everyone, and I'll talk about it, it's just not for employees, it's for all employees. You do not have to be enrolled in our medical plan, and it's for anyone in your household. So that's a little bit different than what you normally think of with benefits, because it's usually a spouse and your dependent children. But if you have a parent living with you, or girlfriend, boyfriend, something like that, living with you that needs help, they also have access to Magellan Healthcare to get that. So just as Jesse and LaShonda mentioned, when someone else is suffering, it impacts others around you. So please take advantage of those situations. So I just wanted to share with you that in early July of last year, I got a phone call from our Magellan account manager letting us know that he was about to send us our quarterly reports, and that what I was going to see on there was in fact not a typo. And so Stacy's going to be sharing a screen here in just a minute to show you the information and the impact that this program had. So in the second quarter prior year, our engagement with the EAP program was sitting at around 4%. And in the second quarter of last year, it was at 22%. He's like, he was very full aware of the program that we had done since they were so involved in helping us with that planning. But he said he had actually never seen anything like that, and was very impressed with the engagement of our employees into this program and to actually take action. And also, you had mentioned in the November timeframe, we had the stress program and dealing with that through the holidays. And we also saw a significant spike in the fourth quarter. So we know that these programs have an impact just from those stories that we hear. We heard good things, but when you actually put numbers behind it and can see people using the programs, it was very encouraging and really shows our commitment to continue to offer these programs and try to get the word out to as many as our employees and workers. So thank you for that. So on the next slide, just as a reminder, just about our Magellan services, you'll see the phone number on there and also the website. We talked a lot about today, and our program last May was around counseling and taking advantage of those in-person and virtual visits that are available. But there's also many other services that Magellan offers around lifestyle coaching, some work-life balance. If you need, legal services, they can help point you in that direction. I always say it's almost like a little concierge service. So if you've got a problem of any kind, you can reach out to them and have them help research, daycares that are available in your area, and let them do calling and finding out the pricing. So there's just a variety of services that are available to them. So please take advantage of those. And again, as I mentioned, this is available to everyone in your household and to all employees. One of the things that we heard after the session that we've been trying to, kind of figure out is Encore offers a lot of good programs and benefits, but sometimes it's hard to figure out where they all are. And so we developed a resource guide for our employees. It's available out on our intranet site under LiveWell, under benefits. And there's a printable version, which is what you're seeing right here, that lists everything. And then there's also a one-pager that you can see, kind of a snapshot, everything all on one page. If you try to print this, depending upon your printer, it may not print all out. So that's why we put a printable version together also. We update this frequently. I mean, sometimes we add new programs, or there's a name change or a website that'll change. So we keep this current throughout the year. But we did add, when you go out there, the box kind of at the bottom left that you'll see there are our mental health and behavioral health services, kind of call out box on who to call. So obviously Magellan is one of those, but we also have services through Blue Cross Blue Shield for those that are enrolled in our medical plan. There's also My Medical Ally, which is also have some resources available and counseling services that they can find for you if you have trouble. You know, we do know that there's a shortage of mental health providers, so we do have employees reach out to us periodically, going, I just can't find one, and even Magellan may be struggling finding one. And we do have access to other resources and contacts that we can call to try to find someone in your area or for a specialty that you're needing. Maybe it's for a child or a specific situation. There's also mental health services through MD Live, our teledoc, our telemedicine services. So there's a variety of ways to reach. Sometimes the very first one that you try may not work for you, and we encourage you, don't give up. Try some other services to get what you need to help you out with your mental health. And then the last thing I just want to cover is kind of what's next. So as you can imagine, we're already planning for 2024. We will be doing another mental health awareness for the month of May like we did last year. We do already have our speaker lined up. Our topic this May is going to be around resilience. And we actually are going to have a Live Well program with our incentive program that's going to be around that, where you can earn incentive dollars. And then we'll have speakers from Magellan coming out. The biggest event will be on May 21st during around the 11:30 to 1 time period. And so those exact time and details will be coming soon. But we're looking forward to that event that we'll be hosting both on site and options of WebEx so that everyone can see it. And other events throughout the month are being planned. But what I would love for you to do, if you have an opportunity, is you can drop it in the chat right now of ideas of other topics around mental health or Magellan programs that you would like to learn more about. So as we continue to plan the calendar events through the summer and also throughout the rest of this year, we're hitting those topics that employees are really interested in. So you can put it in the chat now that are going to capture those and send them to us. Or if you think of something later, feel free to send an email to the Live Well email account with topics there. You make suggestions there. We'll be happy to take those into consideration as we start finishing up our planning for this year. So again, thank you all for your time and listening. We were very excited when we learned that we had won the Spirit of Innovation Award for safety. We were really happy that this program had been so impactful to so many. And I'm going to turn it back over to Christy to see if any questions had come in that I need to answer, or others on the panel.
Yes, we do have a few questions. To start with, Becky, we wanted to find exactly where to get to that interactive one-pager. And then Lily put the one we can print out right here in the chat, but can you kind of explain how to get to it?
Yeah, sure can. You can just go to the Encore intranet page, and up on the tabs, there's a tab for Live Well, and you will just click on the benefits link there. When you click on that, right in the middle of the page is the resource guide, and one says printable and one also says at a glance, I believe is what it's called. So it's just right there. But if anyone does have any trouble finding it, feel free to shoot an email to the HR advocacy or myself. We'll be happy to get it to you.
Great. Thank you, Becky. All right, back to our panel. Is there a way that someone could get involved in this mental health awareness effort?
Yes.
Join the committee.
Yes. You can start with emailing me because you see my name, Kimberly Traylor. But you can email Stacy, correct me if I'm wrong, is it just livewell@encore.com? You can email livewell@encore.com, or anybody whose name you see as a panelist today. We're literally starting to plan our weekly meetings leading up to the event. So just reach out to one of us and we'll be sure to start plugging you in.
Excellent. Good news. Okay, so we've had someone that's tried to utilize the therapy sessions with Magellan, but they're having trouble finding a counselor that'll accept the EAP. Any suggestions on how to overcome that?
Yeah, if you do have, again, occasionally we do hear from employees. If you could just give myself a call or shoot an email to HR advocacy, what we do is, and with your contact name and a good time, we reach out to our Magellan account manager with those specifics, and they will find someone to call you back to really help with a specific need. If you're still just not having any luck after that, just let us know, because we'll work with either Blue Cross or other services that we may have to try to get you pointed in the right direction. So I would say generally, we have good success and matches, but you're not alone. We do hear from employees that just aren't, or they don't connect with the counselor, and it may take a couple of tries. So that's okay. If it's not working, let's find someone that can help you do that. So the benefits team will definitely help you try to make those connections for you.
Excellent. All right, here's one that goes a little bit deeper. How would you encourage a coworker or one of your own employees who are clearly struggling? How do you kind of start up that conversation with them? Kimberly, you want to take that?
Oh, I was
Jesse.
leaving room for my boss. I'm his employee. Scott. No, Jesse said he actually has something. Jesse.
And the way I've always done that is, again, just lead by example. And I think that if you see someone that's struggling, if you can say, hey, I can identify with what's going on, or even if you don't know what's going on, you just say, hey, you're having some issues, or I'm seeing this in you. I know that when I had X, Y, and Z happen to me, it was a really difficult time. And I want you to know that if anything like that is happening, if you need to take some time, if we need to talk about it or whatever, and that's kind of the way I feel like that's the easiest way to do it, because you're not prying into, hey, what's wrong with you, or, what's your problem or anything like that. But just being open and sympathetic to what's going on.
And the thing that I'll add to that is that it could be an opportunity to help reprioritize.
Yeah.
Sometimes with employees, you struggle because you're still trying to remain productive, and you don't want your colleagues or your managers to think that you can no longer carry your weight. That's another reason why we actually keep a lot of things bottled up. Either you can initiate the conversation with your manager, or when your manager makes the observation that, as Jesse just expressed, ask for that opportunity. Is it okay for us to reprioritize my work? Because sometimes, and I'm like this, I'm a little busybody. My hand is into a lot of different things. And so it's important for me to pull my head out sometimes and really say, okay, what's due this week? Or what is the most important top 3 tasks that I have? And let me rechannel my energies around that and allow my boss to help me balance the load. I think that's a very, very important conversation, because either A, we're going to bottle it up and it's all going to drop anyway because we can't maintain it all. Or we're going to start missing expectations and deliverables that now have impacts to other teams. And so if you don't get ahead of it early, you can find yourself in a situation where you're thinking your boss is being pretty unreasonable when really we just haven't communicated anything. We know we are a very productive business. There are some things that, hey, we do have to keep going. But the earlier you can communicate, reprioritizing the schedule and clarifying, working with your manager as a partner and defining what requires the right now focus, then some of that other stuff will free itself up or be properly reallocated to another resource.
I will add to that also. Monica Knight on our HR team has had training in mental health first aid and has some great talking points and opportunities on how to be there for friends, family, coworkers, and how to approach those situations. And in my head right now, here's a topic. This is a perfect example of where we could potentially have a session about how to approach people and how to start these conversations to try to help your coworkers or friends or family out. So thank you for that. And you could definitely reach out to Monica Knight. She'd be happy to talk to you about that if you've got something going on right now that you would like to address with an employee.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. One last question. Do you have any tools you find useful for balancing your workload?
Is this a personal question for us?
Struggle with balance.
Right. Yeah. Just what do you personally use?
Yeah, we're
this
all
thing?
listening for the answer.
I will take that on, and I don't like the word balance. It's never going to be balanced. You cannot be 50-50. Something is, you're going to give 70 over here and something's going to get 30 over here. It's all about prioritizing and organizing your workload. I don't like the work balance. I don't like balance because that's not realistic. I feel like that's something they need to throw away because it's not.
I agree with that. I was asked to speak on a panel on this particular topic last year, and I said I will only speak if I can debunk the myth that work-life balance exists. There are some things technical that you can do. Yes, prioritize your responsibilities, time block, block specific time on your calendar for certain things. But
That's
it
what I
really does
do.
come back to priorities. And I say in my home, there are times when last year was a very challenging year for me. I have a grandmother who has dementia. Last 2 years have been quite challenging, to be honest. And there were times where I had to go back to, hey, Scott, let's really frame out what I need to prioritize here, because now this is requiring a little bit more of my time. Now that I have things a little bit more settled, Encore can get that time back. So for me, it's a trade-off. And I agree with LaShonda wholeheartedly. There are some times where whatever is happening just in my overall life, some things are getting 25, the other things getting 75. The next time this is getting 100, this is getting nothing. To me, work life is a spectrum. And it just depends on what season and time you are in your life. But prioritizing, communicating, and being disciplined about how you use your time can help you be effective in navigating all of it.
Nice. And I saw the chat come in. I use the Full Focus Planner, so you can Google that and just kind of take a look. It helps them stay organized at work and prioritize on what really has to get done.
Oh, a full focus planner. Okay, they say thank you. All right, well, thank y'all so much, guest speakers, for your vulnerability and your transparency. We've had so many things coming up in the chat, just giving you kudos left and right, but it's time for us to go. I want to find my little talking points real quick.
You were so into the conversation, Christy, you lost it.
Well, I'm like writing stuff down. All right. So if you want to view this session again, you can always visit the Innovation Week website. Next week, we'll have the recordings up. You'll just push the recordings button and you can find everything from the past 4 years now that we've done this virtually. And if you have any questions, always give us an email at pods@encore.com. We'll see you at the next session, which starts at 11 a.m. We're going to hear from DesignWise and how they received the Safety Excellence Award for what they have created. So see you there. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.